Slowly but surely, the victims of the catastrophe we are witnessing began to recover their humanity. The very same humanity that Trump and so many white supremacists before him are worked so hard to deny.
They're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
I want to build a wall. I'm going to build a wall.
I want to build the wall. We need the wall.
And Mexico will pay for the wall.
But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
But the leaked audios of crying children tore the soul of the United States of America and showed to the world a naked image of who really were these bad hombres, fueling the rhetoric by the president.
Bueno, aquí tenemos una orquesta.
Univision Spanish reporters quickly found the aunt of Allison, one of the children we hear crying on the recording. And while she chose to remain anonymous, she said,
"I feel great sorrow. My heart broke. She is my blood. I feel powerless. I spoke to her, and she told me everything that was happening, and I couldn't do anything. As of now, we have no news of her either. We know she is in a shelter detention institute. We have tried to follow up with them, and they won't give us any information about her, like where she is. My sister, who is detained in a different place, she does not know either."
This picture by Getty correspondent John Moore went viral as an instant classic of the dehumanization of those migrant families. Univision also found Denis Varela, the father of Janela Varela, the 2-year-old little girl crying on the picture, the younger of 4 siblings and the one that made the trip with her mom.
La foto de John Moore, el fotógrafo. Sí, no, usted me partió el alma, le digo. Me partió el alma porque ver a mi niño, o sea, la primera entrada, pues le dije, esta es mi niña, no.
Wednesday, President Trump signed an executive order that ends the separation of children, but perpetuates indefinite incarceration and zero-tolerance policies. However, the fact that the families will be kept together can make the world of a difference for the next wave of children, who, like a hostage being released by its captor, will not face the ultimate torture, as a welcome to the land of the free and the home of the brave. The policy of violence, incarceration, and denial, conducted on cue by the maestro of showbiz, had begun leaving a trail that shook the hearts of everyone who listened to cry of the children. Infinite sadness quickly turned to rage.
Kidnapping of children crossing the border with their parents, and they're being held hostage for to build a wall. And I think that is abominable and un-American, and I think all Americans need to take every chance they can get to speak out against it.
Shadow Rock UCC and Central United Methodist Church, 2 progressive churches, called for a Father's Day rally on Sunday, June 17.
You go into many of our schools, you know, my children would say, you know, go to their schools and there are different shades of people. We are no longer just a white, you know, country. We are a melting pot of many different, you know, shades. And so that's what our children see. That's the lens that they see through, is not just a pure, you know, white lens, but this various shades and colors, and it's a beautiful thing.
They called for a town hall meeting. Many chosen speakers shared their first-hand experience. The indignation towards Attorney General Jeff Sessions using the Bible to justify child separation and imprisonment was still evident.
You know, anybody can crib a biblical passage to support their position. The fact of the matter is, if you want to talk about the Bible, throughout the scriptures, there is the command to be kind to accept, and to love immigrants.
Michael Stancliffe, a scholar and activist, and one of the organizers of the event.
This is not an isolated incident. There are events, protests, vigils happening all over the country this week, and we're part of this movement to push back on these policies which recall the worst moments in United States history. People seem to be finally paying attention to what is a much broader problem, which is an immoral and dysfunctional immigration policy.
Hermina Sanchez, a mom, made the symbolic cage to carry in arms during the march.
Me motivó mucho a mandar el mensaje sobre los niños, de que la comunidad se dé cuenta de que cómo los tienen en los centros de detención, que esos niños están en una jaula, y para mí es inhumano. Conozco a muchas familias que han sido separadas de sus papás, los hijos de sus papás que han sido deportados, y para mí es un dolor inmenso en oír cada separación de las familias.
At the church town hall, people talk about the case of Marco Antonio Muñoz, 39 years old, from Honduras, who reportedly took his own life in a detention center on May 13 after his children were ripped away from his arms and he was placed in a padded cell. Many more cases were brought to bear, giving a name and a human identity to those often identified as illegal aliens. The people in attendance were outraged.
I'm a human, and what we're doing to these families is not human.
I have 2 children of my own, and I would be extremely upset if they were ripped away from me as they're doing at the border.
It is absolutely a violation of human rights. Sadly, our history has had a lot of human rights violations, and this is unthinkable. I think people feel powerless, like what will it do if I yell and scream? But we have to do something. You can't just walk by, and we can't feel powerless. We have to do something, anything to force change, and awareness is first.
But in the build-up to this point, not everybody was on board. In fact, this scene has been almost the same for over a decade. The indignation is new. The cages with families and children in them are not. Jay Murrieta is a security contractor from Tucson, Arizona. I have personally met before. Among other types of facilities, he has also worked on the provisional detention centers. Responding to my inquiry, he wrote,
I worked on 3 contracts with ICE and BP, and this was no different than the scene is now. I'm talking about it being over 10 years ago. I worked those contracts. This isn't new, nor is it only occurring due to the current administration. This happened in the Obama and Bush administrations and started with the Clintons.
The presence of unaccompanied minors in these detention centers for small periods of time has been a common occurrence over the past decade. A wave of unaccompanied children from Honduras, Nicaragua, and El Salvador have been knocking on USA's doors, fleeing gang violence, escaping recruitment and assassination threats, and poverty. These children, unlike past immigrant waves who avoided the Border Patrol, immediately surrendered at U.S. ports of entry, forcing its legal processing and release under a relative scare if they had any. Thus, the presence of unaccompanied children at these facilities over the past decade. An experience that Murrieta, a hard man by any standards, who manned those facilities over the last decade and trains law enforcement in martial arts, described as
heartbreaking, to say the very least.
Murrieta experienced how challenging it was to keep children and families detained even for a short period of time. Trump's executive order ends family separation, but ensures indefinite detention. The recent escalations in number and severity of human rights violations is well documented and denounced by public and private organizations of a broad spectrum, foreign representatives, and even the United Nations. The move by United States on Tuesday, June 19, to abandon the United Nations Human Rights Council signals yet another step into a trend of human rights violations.
Say it loud, say it clear. Immigrants are welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear. Immigrants are welcome here. Say it loud, say it clear. Immigrants are welcome here.
From Phoenix, Arizona, this is Oscar Leon.
Amores con muchos colores me gustan.